Welcome to our channel, dear learners. Today we journey into the past, a time of courage, chaos, and colossal change. This is the unforgettable story of World War I, the war that was supposed to end all wars. Get ready to learn English through a story that is gripping, emotional, and rich in history. It was the summer of 1914. Europe was at peace, or so it seemed. Families enjoyed picnics in the countryside. Children played in the streets. The cities buzzed with excitement, trade, and new inventions. But deep beneath the surface, tensions were rising. Nations were growing suspicious. Armies were growing larger. Alliances were forming, like secret handshakes between powerful countries. Something terrible was about to happen. The spark came on June 28, 1914. In the city of Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was assassinated. He and his wife were shot by a young man named Gavrilo Princip, a Serbian nationalist. The world stopped. Austria-Hungary was furious. They blamed Serbia. Demands were made. Threats were exchanged. And then, war. Within weeks, the world changed forever. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia came to defend Serbia. Germany backed Austria-Hungary. France and Britain joined the fight to stop Germany. One by one, countries were pulled into the conflict, like dominoes falling. The war was no longer about one assassination. It had become a battle for power, pride, and survival. The war was fought on many fronts: the Western Front, the Eastern Front, the Italian Front, and beyond. But the Western Front, between France and Germany, became the most famous and the most tragic. Soldiers dug deep trenches across the land. These long, muddy ditches became their homes. Rats ran over their feet. Rain soaked their clothes. The smell of death was everywhere. Between the trenches was a deadly zone called no man's land. Anyone who crossed it was often shot within seconds. It was a place of horror. The weapons were new and terrifying. Machine guns fired hundreds of bullets per minute. Poison gas burned soldiers' lungs and eyes. Tanks rumbled across the fields. Airplanes flew above, dropping bombs. This was war like the world had never seen before. Millions of young men were sent to fight. Some were just 18 or 19. They left their homes, their families, and everything they knew, not knowing if they would ever return. Letters from the front lines were filled with hope, fear, and love. "Don't worry about me," one soldier wrote. "I'll be home by Christmas." But Christmas came, and he was still fighting. But Christmas came, and he was still fighting. The war did not end in a few months, as many believed. It dragged on for years, year after year of gunfire, mud, and misery. Hope faded. Families waited by the window, watching for telegrams. Each knock on the door could mean the worst news of all. Back at home, life was changing too. Women who had once stayed at home stepped into factories. They built weapons, sewed uniforms, and ran the farms. Children helped where they could. Everyone gave something: money, metal, time, anything to help the soldiers at the front. One young nurse named Clara wrote in her diary, "I saw a boy today, 17 years old. He smiled, even though he had lost his leg. He said, 'Don't cry, nurse. I'll dance again someday.' And I believed him." The war brought pain, but it also brought stories of great courage. In 1916, one of the deadliest battles of the war took place, the Battle of the Somme. It lasted for over 4 months. More than 1 million men were killed or wounded. On the first day alone, Nearly 60,000 British soldiers fell. People asked, "Is it worth it?" But the fighting continued. Meanwhile, far across the ocean, the United States was watching. At first, America stayed neutral, but German submarines began attacking American ships. Then, in 1917, the British discovered a secret message, the Zimmermann telegram. Germany had promised to help Mexico take back parts of the U.S. if Mexico joined the war. That was the final straw. The United States entered the war. When American soldiers, the doughboys, arrived in Europe, they brought fresh energy. They were young, strong, and full of spirit. They helped push back the German forces. Hope returned. The end was finally in sight. By 1918, the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and their allies, were growing weak. Their people were starving. Their armies were tired. On November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the guns finally fell silent. The war was over. People danced in the streets, bells rang, tears flowed. But the joy was mixed with sorrow. Over 20 million people had died, soldiers and civilians. Another 21 million were wounded. Cities were destroyed, families were broken, and the world would never be the same. The leaders met in Paris in 1919 to decide the future. They signed the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was blamed for the war. Heavy punishments were placed upon it, loss of land, money, and pride. Some hoped the treaty would bring peace, but others warned, this is not peace. This is only a break before the next storm. The war had changed everything. Old empires fell. The Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary, and the Russian Empire were gone. New countries were born: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and more. Maps were redrawn. People were forced to leave their homes. And the soldiers? Many returned home with scars, some on their bodies, many on their hearts. They suffered from what we now call PTSD. Back then, they called it shell shock. It was hard to speak of, harder to understand. One British poet, Wilfred Owen, who fought in the war, wrote these haunting lines. "My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory. It is sweet and right to die for your country, the old lie." People tried to move on, but the memory of World War I stayed in their hearts. Every November 11th at 11 a.m. we remember. We wear red poppies. We stand in silence. We think of the sacrifice, the bravery, the tragedy, and we say, never again. But sadly, just 2 decades later, the world would be at war again. That, dear learner, is another story. Learning English through history not only teaches you language, it opens your heart and mind to the lives of those who came before us. Thank you for listening, dear friend. You are not just learning English, you are learning the world. Stay curious. Stay kind. And remember, words have the power to tell even the deepest stories. See you in the next story.